Welcome to Fresh Catholic, a podcast for those who are converting, reverting, or simply want a fresh perspective of the Catholic faith to help them to open their hearts and minds to become closer to the love and goodness of Christ. My daily prayer is that I will be a bright light to others, to be filled with the love and light of Christ, so that when people look at me, they see Him radiating out from me for His glory. Hello and welcome. I'm Lori Balderas, and I'm so happy you're here. So we're going to try something new today, and I am sitting here with my very handsome, talented husband, Simon Balderas.
Wow.
Anyway, we are going to try something new here, and we're always trying to keep it fresh here at Fresh Catholic. So we're going to be talking today about respect for life, the value of life. That's the topic of this week's episode. So my husband, with his many talents, has also done a lot of interviews with a lot of very well-known people. And he really is good at drawing out just different things that they're always nervous and they always think, they're not going to do a good interview. But he does a real good interview because he just always says, we're just having a conversation. So I'm going to turn it on him a little bit where it's like he's very nervous because he's very shy and very quiet, likes to be behind the scenes. But we're going to do this today where he's interviewing me and asking me questions. And so we'll see how this goes. I mean, we're always trying something new. And Simon, you're okay. We're just having a conversation.
Okay, well, I'm going to just kind of jump right into this if that's okay. Well, before I do that, first of all, I just want to say that I have been editing your shows lately, the last, I don't know, how many, dozen or so, at least?
A lot.
Yeah. And I pay attention when they're being recorded, but I kind of purposely tune out a little bit. And when I sit down in front of the computer and really dissect what you're saying and take it apart, I am so impressed by how much you put into the shows, how much you are diligent about the research and fact-checking and all of the things and correcting yourself when you find out, oops, you might have overstated something or what have you. I am just super impressed and proud of you for what you're doing. I just want you to know.
Aw, thank you. That was nice.
So I know that you put a lot of value on life. And you've gone through a lot of near misses, and you might have even seen a little bit of the other side, especially in your accident. And I know it. You also have a little bit of sadness when you see that there may be other people who don't necessarily place a value so much on life. But since you're a Catholic, can you tell me a little bit about what the Church says about the value of life?
Well, I'm going to quote from the Catechism of the Catholic Church.
Okay.
I have it right here. Human life is sacred because from its beginning, it involves the creative action of God, and it remains forever and a special relationship with the Creator, who is its sole end. God alone is the Lord of life from its beginning until its end. No one can under any circumstance claim for himself the right directly to destroy an innocent human being. And also, the Catechism says human life must be respected and protected absolutely from the moment of conception. From the first moment of his existence, a human being must be recognized as having the rights of a person, among which is the invulnerable right of every innocent being to life.
Wow, it's pretty hard to find any cracks in that statement.
Pretty clear.
Yeah, it really is. And where people try at least to find the cracks is from conception, and when a child perhaps is in the womb, from conception.
Mm-hmm.
What is your opinion and maybe the Church's opinion about that?
I believe that the Church is teaching that life is valuable from conception. To me, it's God created us to procreate. So when people have, if we're going to get graphic here, have intercourse and they're going to have a baby, that is immediate. when the sperm meets the egg, that is life generating. That's what it's for. That's the purpose, is life. That's how God filled the earth. So if somebody wants to think it's just a clump of cells, as they always say, or it's just not important, or it's easy to, quote unquote, get rid of, it is easy to get rid of. I hate that statement. It's like, okay, well, it is actually a human.
Right, and people try to dehumanize it. Right. I know we've had this conversation in the past about what if somebody had to terminate it themselves, and what they would have to go through to do this, as opposed to taking a pill or going to a sterile hospital to have something, an abortion or what have you. It makes a big difference when you think about, well, if I was alone and I didn't want it, could you take those steps necessary to end life?
So are you saying, like, what's the difference if you're doing it in a sterile hospital room or doing it yourself? It's all ending the life.
But what it does is it separates us.
Separates it.
It separates us from the process. It's almost like it didn't happen.
Right.
It's a sort of a denial.
You can pretend it didn't happen. Yeah.
Mm.
Well, it's not our choice to see. I struggle with the whole choice thing.
I know. There's a big battle raging out there. So beyond that, there's more to life than just the conception part. That's where it begins, right? So what about life after that, and respecting life after that, which starts with, let's say, a parent taking care of a child. You're respecting its health. You're doing whatever you can to nurture this baby, whatever. But what about even respecting your own health, for example?
Well, that's the thing, is that we are gifted with life. God gives us the gift of life. And a lot of people really take it for granted. A lot of people don't put value in their life. I know I've had moments where I haven't put value on my life when I was younger, and I would do really stupid, reckless things. And I just thought I was invincible. I think that's a very typical thing at certain moments and ages of your life, where you just think you're invincible and you can do anything, and you're not even giving other people a thought. Like, oh, if I were to do this stupid thing, my family's going to be crushed by this if I die, or if I end up in the hospital for the rest of my life. I don't feel people put a lot of value on their life, and they maybe don't take care of their body that they were gifted. You get one body, you get one life, and it's really an insult to the Lord, in my opinion, if you're going to degrade your body, do these horrible things to your body, and you just don't value it, and you consume things you shouldn't be consuming, lots of drugs, alcohol, unhealthy food. To me, your life is very valuable. I find it fascinating that when people will have moments like that, where maybe they're doing things that are bad for their bodies, but then when they get sick, get really, really sick, then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I guess I better get my act together. Or you realize, oh my gosh, I could lose this life. It's like, well, take care of it all the way around. Don't wait until you're sick and dying, and all of a sudden, I guess if that's what it takes, that's better than nothing. Maybe that's the lesson from God, is like, okay, well, your life doesn't mean anything to you. Now I'm just going to make it rough on you. And all of a sudden, the clock starts ticking. The hourglass, the sand starts pouring really quickly, because you're thinking, oh, now all of a sudden, I was smoking for years and I didn't want to put down the cigarettes, and now I have lung cancer. So now I'm, uh-oh. Well, it's like, value your life all the way around. Don't do that to your body.
Mm-hmm. And people fall into these situations where they do, like you said, terrible things to their body, take drugs and so forth, but they do them oftentimes because they themselves are faced with challenging situations, some kind of trauma or whatever, and they're compensating for, I don't know, self-medicating some pain that they don't want to feel. They're escaping this life that they don't want to necessarily face. So everybody has all of these varied challenges in their own life.
Right.
Yeah, so maybe you could speak a little bit about that.
So I feel like everybody has a different life. Everybody has a different situation. Some people are leading what seems to be a charmed life. Everything's great. They have lots of money. They have lots of things. Everything's going fine and great. Of course, we really don't know what's going on in people's lives. Then you have people who live in poverty or live in an abusive relationship or have, not the greatest parents, or there's neglect. They're not leading a good life. They do want to check out. They don't want to live here anymore on this planet. And they're feeling distraught and destitute and all these things. But I feel like unless you're a small child and you have no control over your life, if you're living in that situation, there's not a lot you can do. You could go to somewhere and talk to a grown-up and try to get out of the situation. But for the most part, I'm talking more about adults or people that find themselves in a bad situation and they're not valuing their lives or things aren't going well for them. Well, you need to pivot, change what you're doing, and also try to think about it in these terms. If you're not putting value on your life and you don't think your life is valuable, what can you change? What can you change in your life to add more value to your life? You can make some changes. One thing you can do, doesn't matter your situation. It doesn't matter where you live. It doesn't matter how much money you have or anything. You can always draw close to the Lord. Nobody can tell you what to think. Nobody can tell you when you can pray and when you can't pray. It's all inward. It's all your relationship with the Lord. So if you're in a very bad situation, have that time alone with Christ. Pray to Him. Listen to Him. Hear Him. Feel Him with you. Ask Him to help you to find your way out. Sometimes people are stuck in a situation and they think they can't get out of it, but maybe they can. And nobody can stop you from praying and believing. And I believe if you do that and you turn your life over and you give up unhealthy habits, unhealthy people, toxic things around you, your life can change. Some people feel stuck, but you can get out if you really want to.
And when you say that, I'm thinking about people going through life in different phases. So, for example, if you were a young child and you grew up in not a Catholic household or even a Christian household, and you really don't have that barometer of somewhere to go, and then you experience pain in your life, then where do you go? Like you said, go pray, enrich your spiritual life. But if you don't have that, you're kind of at risk, don't you think?
Oh, yes. And see, that's where I was at. I mean, I had a great family, great foundation, no religion, no God. And I was met with not great situations. I didn't feel I could go talk to my parents about it. They were there. They caught me when I fell a bunch of times. If I didn't have them, I'd be in a world of trouble. But I didn't think to go to God. I didn't think that was, that never even occurred to me. Like, oh, this is happening. I'm going to pray. I'm going to go into this room in my mind and my heart and my soul with God. I didn't do that.
Do you feel like they treated you and responded to you in an emotional way, but didn't necessarily give you any sort of spiritual instruction that could also help you? Do you think you needed both? Why do people need both?
Are you asking if parents did that?
Right. I know that because I know your dad, I know your mom. They're very good people. Your dad especially is a pillar in the community. He was a very upstanding person, and he gave you a lot of mentorship and instruction in life, and he supported you in an emotional way, and that's great. But on the other hand, when you did venture into some trouble, you didn't necessarily have the spiritual guidance.
No, not at all. I didn't typically go to them with much. I would seek it out on the streets, so, and it wasn't right. It wasn't good. It wasn't the right answer. I'm shocked I'm here today. I really am.
Did you feel like there was something missing, or you just...
No, I didn't know. You asked the question, right, just seconds ago about what does a person do when they don't have that foundation of the Lord, and to go to that, or to go to a priest, or to go to someone. That's the whole thing. If you can't go to your parent, like, let's say, it's not that my parents weren't great people. It was more that, I don't know why I didn't go to them. I don't really have an answer for that, but I didn't. And so what I would do is I would seek out people that didn't have the answers. They had the wrong answers. And I think if a person can know that the Lord is there, know they can go to a priest, know they can go to somebody in their church who's going to give them the right answer, that's not maybe their family. It's somebody where I'll do that all the time. I go to them all the time, and I want to know the answer from them because I trust their answer. And I know that they're very knowledgeable in what God would want or what Jesus would be answering. That's why I go to that. I don't want a worldly answer. I don't want worldly help necessarily. I want to know that I'm doing the thing that if Jesus were here, he'd want me to do.
Where can that worldly advice get you into trouble or send you down a road where it's perhaps dangerous? There's a lot of stuff going on today where parents are making decisions for their children that we really don't know what's going to happen to them years down the road. And I'm talking about really sensitive subjects like gender and so forth,
right?
What people are doing. What other places can people get into trouble with just depending on worldly advice?
So I would say that people who are giving worldly advice to people instead of spiritual advice, I would say the world is very selfish. The world is talking about what they can get out of something.
So you're a young 15-year-old girl and you go to your parents and say, I'm pregnant. What's the worldly advice and why is that a problem?
The worldly advice, in my opinion, would be, oh, well, we're going to go get you an abortion because you're too young and your life will be over and we have too many plans for you and we need to go take care of this thing. We need to take care of it. And then you can just move on with your life. That's the worldly advice because that's a very selfish answer. That's the answer of, well, you did this thing that, made a mistake and we're going to fix the mistake so that you can continue on in your life and probably make more mistakes. I used to have girls I knew that would use abortion as birth control. They get pregnant all the time and just have an abortion. Easy breezy. Didn't seem to affect them. I don't know if it did, but outwardly it didn't seem to. And so it's like, if a parent or a person's advice, if that's the advice, is, oh, let's just go get you an abortion and get rid of this mistake you made so that we can move on, and not have to talk about it and not have to address it. And it's so embarrassing and it's going to cost us so much money. And what are we going to do? And then if you give it out for adoption, then there's one of your children's going to be roaming the earth and I'm going to feel bad about myself.
Right. It further creates that divide that it is not a human, and
right.
It confirms, especially in a younger person. I could definitely see that. What are some other phases in life? Because we're talking about, let's say there's childhood, and then there's a young adult, and then you become an adult. How is life viewed in each of those separate stages?
Well, like a value?
Yeah.
Value of your life. I feel like when you're a child or a baby, I think babies and children are so unifying to people. It's this beautiful phase. You're a child, you're innocent, the people around you, it brightens everybody up when they're around babies and children. It reminds you of when you were a child. It reminds you of what you'd like to do different. It's all very fresh and happy and beautiful and bright and shiny. And I think there's such a value in children and babies just by their mere presence. They're just like this pure thing. Everybody started out as a baby. It's what life turned them into later that is either good or bad. And I feel like when you're a teenager, well, it's a very challenging time for a lot of people. It's a challenging time for the teenager. It's a challenging time for the parents and people around them because there's a lot of things going on with that. But teenagers are very valuable. They remind us of of challenges. Life isn't easy. That's where it begins. It's a lot. Life can be very tumultuous. So if you make it through teenage years as a parent or a teenager, then, that's kind of a preface of what's coming in the rest of your life. You don't always feel good. You have angry outbursts. You have moments of lust. You have moments of stupidity. You have moments of over-dramatizing things. It's like it's kind of an interesting phase from this easy, happy, joyous thing of being a child. And then you're like kind of going in, what's it called? Hazing. Hazing period of, okay, well, it's going to be rough. And then we're going to shove you into adulthood. It's that transition. And it is supposed to be hard, I think.
Yeah.
So it's valuable in the sense of like, I think when children are little children, they have everything handed to them. Everything's easy. They don't have to worry about anything. They don't know where their food's coming from. They don't know how they're getting to live where they're living. They don't know what it takes to drive a car somewhere. They're just going along with it. And you would never take a child and put them straight into adulthood. That's why the teen years are this valuable hazing period. But that's why we also have to be very cautious and mindful of the value of a teenager, because they're turning from a child into an adult. If you don't let them go through that phase, like we need to, if you want to hear about what I think about childhood, go back and listen to the childhood episode. We need to let our children be children when they're little. Then when they're teenagers, start giving them more responsibilities. But they're not adults yet. It's unfair to make them think that they're an adult already and they should be able to make all the choices in the world they want. They shouldn't.
We'll be right back.
Rising anti-Semitism. New generations redefining how they connect with Jewish traditions. Changing dynamics among Jews around the globe. Take a deep dive into these topics and more on Mosaic, Exploring Jewish Issues, the podcast brought to you by the Jewish Federation of Palm Beach County. Hear from the thought leaders, politicians, scholars, and artists at the forefront of Jewish life today. Subscribe to Mosaic, Exploring Jewish Issues, wherever you listen to podcasts.
And we have children that have become adults and have had children of their own. And it's such an interesting perspective to watch them parent their children. Yeah. And then one thing I find interesting is our kids often give us troubles growing up, and you see their kids giving them the same troubles and how they sort of adapt. And then when you talk to them, they kind of look at you like in a very, they can relate.
And just for our listeners, we have 7 children between us. We're on grandchild number 10 coming in January. So that's a lot. Anyway, but yeah, there's a lot of personalities there. And yeah, it is interesting to see them as parents. But I mean, I think teenagers, even though it's a rough period, I think they still need our guidance. They're very valuable to life and family, and I know that they struggle with how they feel and everything, and it's a rough time for everybody, but I think it's really important, and I think that they're still looking to their parents for guidance and structure, and it's okay to tell your teenager no. It's okay to put down some rules so that they feel safe and secure, so that they can turn into a good adult and value their life.
Yeah. So last night we watched this really cool documentary about Nora Ephron, and I know that you love her movies and her writing and so forth. And I got to tell you, Lori, I didn't say anything last night when we were watching, but as they're describing her and her personality, and she was a real take charge person, and she was funny, and she had a real distinct personality. She really kind of made her mark. I was saying to myself, oh, Lori's just like that. Oh, Lori's just like that. Oh, Lori's just like, so it's a no wonder that you love her movies, and everybody loves her movies, her rom-com movies and stuff. Sleepless in Seattle, and You've Got Mail. I know that's one of your favorites, but she did something really interesting at the end of her life, and I kind of want to get your opinion on that.
Yeah. So first of all, thank you for saying that.
Did you think so? Did you notice this?
Yeah. Yeah.
Her smile.
I didn't even know anything about her, really. I just know that I love her movies, and I call them the macaroni and cheese of movies because they're so comforting and yummy, and I love them, and I don't even know how many times I've watched them, but it was a great documentary because I think she was a very valuable person, and I think she was very valued by a lot of people around her. One of the interviews was Steven Spielberg, who I also very much admire. And he was saying he just really wanted to be on her good side. And he, that was his goal and all these things. So they had some lovely interviews with lots of people that I really, really like. So I appreciate you saying that about her. But I do know she was a very strong lady, and she's very talented and great writer and very strong in her thoughts. And one of the things that struck me was she knew that she had, I believe it was a blood disorder or something. Leukemia. And she knew it, but nobody else knew. Nobody. Not her family, not her friends, nobody. Nobody knew, and she was keeping it to herself. And then all of a sudden, she started realizing her life was coming to a close. And she started like meeting up with her friends and having talks with them. And they look back later and they go, oh, that was like our final lunch with her, our final dinner.
Yeah.
And so she knew, but they didn't know. And then, of course, she passes away, and that was very jarring to everybody. But before she died, the way they end the documentary is with her speaking, and it's her saying her list of things she's going to miss when she dies. And I really loved that because, it was very simple things, but I loved that she made a list about what she was going to miss. And my take on it was, I love that idea, but from a Catholic perspective, you're going to go to heaven afterwards. So all those things that she would miss, I don't know what her religious thing is, but I think if I'm going to miss something, it's going to be even better and more amazing in heaven, And
I love the fact that she's going to miss pie.
Yeah, that was one of the last ones. And bacon, right?
Yeah.
Bacon. Yeah, that was on her list. So it was funny, but it was also very interesting to see what she valued. When I heard that list, that's what I was thinking was like, oh, these are the things that she's going to miss the most, which means she loves them the most, or they brought her the most joy or whatever. So I thought that's a good project for us all to do, is make the list, see where your values are. Like, what are you going to miss? What's the most important things to you? And then, of course, you'll have them in heaven. But I think that was interesting.
I also thought that it was interesting that she didn't list any stuff. It was just missing relationships with people and experiences
and food.
And food.
Yeah.
And, the scent of things.
Oh, that was the thing I was going to say. I don't know if she said this or she was quoting somebody else, but she said, eat your last meal. But, like if somebody has a last meal, she said, eat your last meal now, because if it's your last meal, you might not know it's your last meal. Like, don't wait until it's the end because you wouldn't be able to enjoy it. I'm a big believer in that of, back in my accident, I always say, don't save stuff, like use it. Don't forget to tell somebody you love them or how you feel about them. Value that part of your life because it can easily be taken away in an instant, as I know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. So I'm going to just go dark for a little bit. I have a tendency to maybe look on the darker side of things or what have you, but I don't know. I have a tendency just to feel deeply about stuff, and sometimes it's really sad stuff that I think about. So the dark stuff I want to talk about is basically, having a responsibility for life. There's a lot of people who are careless about life and harm others and end other people's lives without even thinking about it.
Mm-hmm. Or they don't think about it enough.
Right.
They only think about it in how it affects them.
Right. And what are the consequences of that according to the church?
So from the Catechism, it says this: everyone is responsible for his life before God, who has given it to him. It is God who remains the sovereign master of life. We are obliged to accept life gratefully and preserve it for his honor and the salvation of our souls. We are stewards, not owners, of the life God has entrusted to us. It's not ours to dispose of.
Yeah, that's pretty heavy. So when you think about it's not our place to dispose of life, and you remove somebody from the decision that they're just getting rid of a clump of cells, it's not a life, doesn't have a consciousness and all this kind of stuff that you've heard, that's pretty much in direct opposition to what you just read, right?
Yeah.
Is there something further that the church says about ending a life in that way?
Yes. Again, from the Catechism, since the first century, the church has affirmed the moral evil of every procured abortion. This teaching has not changed and remains unchangeable. Direct abortion, that is to say, abortion willed, either as an end or a means, is gravely contrary to the moral law. God, the Lord of life, has entrusted to men the noble mission of safeguarding life, and men must carry it out in a manner worthy of themselves. Life must be protected with the utmost care from the moment of conception. Abortion and infanticide are abominable crimes.
Wow.
That's not murky at all.
Yeah, that's very heavy. I was talking to you, I think it was last week, about a podcast that was kind of disturbing to me regarding euthanasia. And there was a couple that I mentioned to you that the husband had a terminal cancer and he did not want to go through the horrors of dying that way. So he sought out, I believe it was in Switzerland, a place that could assist him in going through assisted suicide. Can you tell me a little bit about what you think about that and what the church thinks about that too?
Well, the church doesn't agree with that because, again, it's deciding to kill somebody is what it is. And as the 10 Commandments say, thou shalt not kill. Again, it's not murky. It's very, very clear. Obviously, you don't want your loved ones to be miserable and in pain and all these things, obviously. But it's not up to you as their spouse, as anybody, to decide to end their life. If they, in fact, want to end their life, and I'm not a theologian, I'm not an expert in this, so please don't come after me, but they could theoretically decide to just not eat anymore. They could just pass away quietly and slowly. Or, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like some people have, if they're in that much pain, they don't have much of a life left, they don't have much time left. That's what hospice is for. They make it very manageable, the pain manageable. It makes it very quiet and calm, and the people pass away naturally. It's not giving them medication. It's not prolonging something. It's not giving them a toxin or a poison that's going to kill them. They're passing away quietly and slowly. That's how my grandfather, he was very old. He didn't want to live anymore. He made the decision to stop eating, and he quietly passed away when God decided it was time for him to go. My dad had cancer. My dad was given the opportunity and the option to prolong his life with medication and surgery. He said no, and he quietly passed away when it was God's choice. If my mother would have said that she was going to end his life, I would have fought that. I would have fought her on that because I don't believe in that. And it's not up to a human. It's up to God.
Right. This is sad stuff to talk about. However, your dad left behind a very beautiful legacy, and I know you're something you're really proud of. And not only you, but he affected so many other people's lives.
Right. So I think, again, when you think about how valuable your life is, it can go in an instant. I know that from my accident. I could have died that day. My children could have died that day. They didn't. My older son, who has mental issues, there's been times where I've thought I was going to lose him, about 5 times in a very horrible way. That would have been devastating to me. I feel like there's different moments of your life where you can definitely feel that your life is passing very, very quickly. But that also, I think, helps you to realize how maybe you want to turn your life around, how maybe you want to put more value on your life, so that then when you pass away, you leave a legacy. You leave where people remember you and know that you gave value to the world by doing good service for other people, being loving and kind, compassionate, giving to charity, anything that can put value on your life. I look back at my dad and I know he didn't lie, cheat, and steal his way through the world. He was a mentor, a good person. He did a lot of things of value. And so now we have that legacy. He led a stellar life. That's how you want to leave the world, is that you did everything you could to value your body, to value your surroundings, to take care of yourself and your family and the planet. And I just think that's how you want to go out.
What are some things that we can do as individuals to help people who are struggling with these issues, value of life, abortion, all of these topics that we kind of talked about? What are some things that people can do to assist others as Catholics?
Well, first of all, pray. People, that always sounds like such a, silly thing to say to some people, where it's like, well, we're going to pray about it. Prayer is powerful. And I do think more and more and more, I'm just noticing what a selfish world we live in, where everybody's just out for themselves and what's the easiest thing for me and what's the quickest fix. And, nobody wants to work for anything and be patient for anything. But what I would say is, if you're going to be selfish, okay, turn on yourself and say, like, if a woman were to come up to me and she's going to have an abortion, it's my choice, my body, my choice, my parents don't want to live anymore, I'm going to put them out of their misery. The whole thing is, turn it on yourself. Would you want your children to do that to you if you're ever actually blessed with a child? Because now you're saying you're trying to have an abortion. Someday, what if you have a child? Do you want the child to turn on you and want to put you, quote unquote, out of your misery? No, you don't want that. Nobody wants that. Anybody that's starting to take somebody else's life, whether it be in a senseless shooting, people kill other people for the dumbest reasons. It's like, don't kill your wife because you don't want to be married to her anymore. Figure out a different alternative. There's so many reasons why people kill other people. I don't understand it. I can't wrap my mind around it because I value my life so much and the people's lives around me so much. I can't imagine that even being in my head. But all I can say is, maybe if you said to them, well, is your life valuable? I don't know what their answer would be. Maybe it would be, no, my life isn't valuable. Well, how can we make it valuable? You are valuable. I had a guy one time, I was on my walk at the beach, and for whatever reason, he stopped me. I don't know, sometimes I feel it's like just I have my medals and my crucifix, and I had somebody one time think I was a nun, because all I wear is black, and I have these medals, But anyway, this very inebriated, drunk, and very high on drugs young man stopped me, and I stopped, and I said, what can I do for you? And he was very upset, and he was crying, and he said, I'm a millionaire, and I have so much money, and nobody loves me, and I'm, he was so distraught. And I was thinking, well, I don't know if he's a millionaire or not. I don't know his life, but I did know he was distraught. And I knew that he was standing there telling me, my life isn't worth anything. I'm just going to go, who cares what happens to me? And I said, well, I care what happens to you. And he looked at me, like in his drunkenness, looked at me, and he said, you do? And I said, yes. And he said, but I'm a piece of shit. And I said, but you're not. And I just looked at him in his little bloodshot eyes, and he just started crying. And I said, you are very valuable, and God loves you. And I sat down with him, put my arm around him. I said, you're very valuable. I said, you need to make some other choices. You're clearly not doing very well. So I said, you're very valuable, but you need to shift what you're doing and know that you're here for a reason and you're here for a purpose. Don't give up. Don't throw in the towel, and I'm going to pray for you. And he said, you are? Of course. So, I think people, for whatever reason, a lot of people are in a lot of trauma right now. A lot of people are very wounded. A lot of people maybe weren't made to feel valuable when they were growing up. Maybe when they hit that teenage hazing phase that their parents struggled with them, gave up on them, threw in the towel on them, and then wonder why they're screwed up adults. So every phase is valuable, and it's then how do we show value to other people? Why is one person's life more valuable than another's? It shouldn't have to do with money. It shouldn't have to do with status. It shouldn't have to do with your color of your skin. It shouldn't have to do with any of that. Everybody is valuable. We're all made in the image and likeness of God. We are all valuable. But for whatever reason, whether it's environment, whether it's what family you've been raised in. Maybe you're not feeling very valuable, but you are valuable. Go find your value. That's why I'm saying the only people I can imagine that don't have control over that are babies and very old people. That's why they're the most vulnerable. That's why we have to take care of them the most, because they can't make their own decisions and choices. So we have to allow them to be dignified in both those phases. But then in between, don't whine and complain about your situation and think you don't have value. Up your value. Go deep in with the Lord. If you're not religious, maybe become religious. Maybe that's part of the problem. You add Jesus into your life will improve. It will improve. It doesn't make it easy. You and I know we're struggling like nobody's business. But we know we have the Lord, and He's our biggest value in our life, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I feel like if you aren't feeling valued, or you're feeling like you have no value, you do. But whatever you're doing, if it's not working, shift.
Right. And we live in a world of such distraction now in an age. I remember when I was a kid, I don't think we had so many distractions.
No.
Now there's a lot more noise, and it's a lot harder to consider the things that you're talking about, the value of life, the value of your own life. Maybe there's a lot of things that we can stop doing. I know you always say, just stop staring into your phone. Stop. Get off that TikTok, all of that stuff. But again,
he's cute, but he's an addict.
I love me some TikTok. I look up recipes. I love looking up those recipes. And
is that what they call it?
Yeah, 1 minute recipes, man. You can. Anyways, that's my excuse.
Okay.
But again, we could perhaps stop doing some things.
Yeah.
And pay attention to their life. Stop and listen. Stop and be still. You've heard that.
Right. Well, and I do think that's the thing where it's like everybody's rushing around so busy and taking things and people for granted. And all of a sudden those people might be gone. And you think, oh, I really wish I could talk to mom again. Well, mom's gone because you didn't decide to take the time to interact or talk to them or find value in them. You know, there's nothing better. This sounds weird. This sounds really weird. But because I work at the Catholic Church, you know, we have a lot of funerals, sadly. But when I go to funerals, I love to hear the stories of the people, because their life wasn't just a little old person, and they had like a life, and they were vibrant, and they made big changes and did great things in the world. And when I hear about these people, I think, gosh, you know, I had no idea about that. And I think we forget that everybody does have value. You got to find what it is. Like, it might not be something you would do that you think is valuable for yourself, but when you look at something else and go, wow, they had value in the world. This generation coming up, what are they going to be known for? Like, I think about some of these influencers or some of these kids, you know, they could be anywhere under 40 because I'm so old now, but what are they going to tell their grandkids someday? Well, you know,
yeah,
I was on TikTok. It's like, what's that, Grandpa? You know, I mean, what is that going to be? That's shameful. Come on, go get real value out there. There's so many things that you can do to make yourself valuable and worthwhile to others. It's not all about you. It's about others. How do you affect others in the world?
Yeah. Super, super good thoughts. I think I'm kind of all questioned out here. I think you...
How do you feel?
I feel scared.
You felt scared?
Yeah, I felt scared.
Oh, yeah.
Anyways, what's super interesting for me, honestly, is when I do the editing and I have to listen to things sometimes a couple times over and edit and move things around or what have you. I really can analyze and see how your mind works in a much more concentrated way. It's really interesting. I remember I told you that I at dinner, I'm like, I really like you.
Yeah. Aw, that was so nice.
Yeah, I like the way you think. You have a good mind.
I'm trying. So, and a lot of this comes from the Holy Spirit, and the last 2 episodes, to be honest with you, aren't my words at all. I just feel like they're, coming to me and I'm just kind of can't process it fast enough. So anyway, this has been lovely.
Yeah.
Good experiment. We'll see what happens. Thank you for listening. Thank you. Love you. Bye. And now some Fresh Catholic news. So I don't know if you've been there lately, but you should go check out my website. My husband Simon has been doing so much work on it. It looks so beautiful. Lots of improvements and updates. The Fresh Catholic comics are on there. My Patreon is there. I think people are having a hard time finding that Patreon. I don't know why. It's very simple. Just scroll down to the bottom of each and every page. There's a little Patreon icon. Click on it, and you can go see how to be my friend and on my Patreon. It's so awesome. Lots of extra perks. You get behind the scenes footage. You get afterthoughts, which is I go a little deeper than on my typical podcast. So you should check it out. There's merchandise you get. So cool. Please go. I would love to come and do speaking events for your Bible study or your workplace or wherever. I would love to come and talk about various topics that will draw more people to our Lord Jesus Christ. Also, still at number 12 on the top 90 Catholic podcast list. Yay. Thank you so, so much. I really appreciate you all listening and sharing with your friends. I love it when people email me, stop me at church, stop me anywhere and say, hey, I'm listening to your podcast. I love it. I'm getting so much out of it. Warms my heart. I really appreciate it. Also, you got to check out Sock Religious. It's an amazing sock company, something for everybody. Those socks are very cool and very well made. So check it out. Go to my podcast tab on my website. Scroll down. You'll see my ad for it. When you order, you get 10% off. Jesus socks, Mary socks, Saint socks. Go check it out. Please follow me on Instagram and Facebook. I love to post every day, and people love those videos. So check them out. Fresh Catholic Comics is there as well. So thank you. Love you. Bye. Thank you for joining me today. Now go out and be a bright light in someone's life. And remember, be focused, be faithful, and be fresh. Fresh Catholic is produced, edited, and recorded at Wonder Mouse Studios in Ventura, California.